Hello, kiddos. Let's continue with the story of the flood in Genesis 7. Let's see how far we get today. Verse 17 says, "Now the flood was on the earth 40 days. The waters increased and lifted up the ark." Okay, so the ark is like a boat. So as the waters came up, then the ark started to float, and it rose high above the earth. The waters prevailed and greatly increased on the earth. There was tons of water. Gobs of water, and the ark moved about on the surface of the water. So we're used to having boats, but back then they didn't have too many boats, I don't think. And so at any rate, so the boat is floating, the ark is floating on the waters, and the waters prevailed exceedingly on the earth. In other words, they covered the entire earth, and all the high hills under the whole heaven were covered. Now, the high hills back then weren't like high hills today. They weren't nearly as high. The Bible says then that the waters prevailed 15 cubits upward, and the mountains were covered 15 cubits. Let me see. That is about 25 feet, if I'm not mistaken. And so that's not very much water, but if the mountains were very low back then, it says the mountains were covered, then that's the water. The water didn't have to be, a mile high, whether you know how much a mile is or not. But anyway, so all it makes clear to us is that the water covered the highest hill that was anywhere was underwater. There was no more place for animals or men to be. And it says, "And all flesh died that moved on the earth, birds and cattle and beasts and every creeping thing that creeps on the earth, and every man." Okay, so everything died, all in whose nostrils or in whose nose was the breath of the spirit of life. Everything that lived on the dry land died. So he destroyed all living things which were on the face of the ground. So God killed all of the people and all of the animals. Why? Because man was sinful, very, very sinful. And many times when people sin, other people and other things get hurt. And that's just the way it is. That's life. That's reality. It happens today and it happened back then. And that's one of the consequences of sin. Both man and cattle, creeping thing, and the bird of the air, they were destroyed from the earth. Only Noah and those who were with him in the ark remained alive. Wow, that's amazing that from a whole earth full of people, we don't know how many people, but a lot, many people, only 8 remained because they all died in that flood. And the waters prevailed on the earth, or they were over the earth for 150 days. Okay, so that's a long time. It's almost half a year that the waters were over the earth. This is the flood, the tremendous account and story of when God decided to bring a huge punishment to man because man had disobeyed him. God always punishes man when he sins. We always are punished, but sometimes God really comes and does something big, and he did something with the flood. But he saw someone who was faithful, and he honored him, and that was Noah and his family. And so we thank the Lord for his mercy and his grace, that even when he has to do what's right, and sin has to be punished. But if we will live in obedience to God, and we will do what he wants us to do, he will watch over us, and he will be careful to take care of us. And so that's a story of Noah and the flood. Now we're going to find out in the next few passages what was the earth like after that, and what did Noah do, and what did his family do. And so we'll find out some of those things in the next chapter, because we've finished chapter 7 of Genesis. Okay, goodbye. Love you.